Good morning/afternoon, everyone. There's something that every single one of us in this room has in common at some point. Someone has hurt us. Maybe it was a friend who betrayed your trust, a coworker who humiliated you in front of others, or even a loved one whose words pierced deeper than they realized. And when that hurt hits us, our instincts often kick in: defend, retreat, lash out, shut down. But today, I want to ask you to do something different just one time. You to minimize your pain or pretend it didn't happen. I'm asking you to lean into what I call the hard middle. That space between being wounded and being wise. Step 1. Acknowledge the hurt. We live in a culture that glorifies being unbothered. But the truth is, numb is not the same as strong. When someone hurts you, the first thing you owe yourself is permission to feel it. You don't have to perform resilience. You just have to be honest. Say to yourself, that hurt. And it matters. Because until we name the pain, we carry it around disguised as anger, sarcasm, or silence. Second, set a boundary, not a wall. Walls keep everyone out. Boundaries keep you safe and still open to connection. A one-time response that changes everything might sound like, "It's not okay for you to speak to me like that. I'm stepping away now, and we can talk when it's respectful." That's not weakness. That's self-leadership. And let me be clear, boundaries aren't punishments. They're clarity. Third, get curious, not cruel. When someone hurts you, your brain starts filling in the gaps. They did that on purpose. They don't care about me. I'm not good enough. But what if just once you pressed pause on that story and asked, what else could be going on here? Curiosity doesn't excuse the hurt, but it does expand your emotional intelligence. And often, pain passed down is pain not yet processed. And finally, choose integrity over retaliation. You may never get an apology. You may never get closure. But you do get to choose your response. And if you respond once with grounded strength, with clear boundaries, and with self-respect, you're showing yourself and others what you stand for. Not because you're trying to be the bigger person, but because you know this truth. You are not here to match someone's hurt. You are here to live from your wholeness. So the next time someone hurts you, just this once, pause and ask, what does love for myself look like right now? Then do that. Just once. And let that be the moment you took your power back, not by force, but by truth. Point 1 of the most overlooked, yet profoundly important steps in the healing process is simply this: acknowledging the hurt. Not minimizing it. Not running from it. Not covering it up with a joke, a distraction, or a busy calendar. Just acknowledging it. That might sound small, even obvious, but in a world that celebrates stoicism over sensitivity, pushing through over pausing, and numbing over naming, this step is radically courageous. When someone hurts you, whether it's in a sharp, sudden moment or over the slow erosion of repeated behavior, your body and your brain know. You might feel it as a heaviness in your chest, a lump in your throat, or that spiraling thought pattern that you just can't seem to quiet down. But instead of turning toward that inner experience, we've been taught to override it. We say things like, "It's not a big deal," or "I shouldn't be this upset," or the classic "I'm fine." We race to forgiveness, or indifference, or intellectual understanding, as if being hurt is a detour, not a destination. But pain, if not processed, doesn't disappear. It just hides. And anything that hides gains power. When you don't allow yourself to acknowledge that something genuinely hurt you, you end up carrying it around anyway, except now it's dressed as sarcasm, resentment, avoidance, or anxiety. It leaks into other conversations, other relationships, other moments where it doesn't belong. And suddenly, you're reacting not just to what's in front of you, but to all the pain you've shelved and stored. Acknowledging hurt is not weakness. It's not self-pity. It's not indulgent. It's responsible. It means choosing to be honest with yourself about your emotional reality. That doesn't mean telling the whole world, and it doesn't mean making the person who hurt you the center of the story. It means looking inward and saying, that thing they said? That silence I received? That way they dismissed me? It really hurt. And it matters. When you name the pain, you take away its power to operate in the dark. And here's the truth: you don't have to justify your pain to anyone for it to be valid. Someone else might say you're too sensitive. They might roll their eyes at your boundaries. They might say, "Oh come on, it wasn't that serious." But how you experience something is your truth, not up for debate, not dependent on consensus. And when you acknowledge hurt, you're saying to yourself, "My emotions are trustworthy. I am allowed to feel this. I am not being dramatic. I am being human." There's a difference between acknowledging pain and getting stuck in it. But most people never even reach the acknowledgement part because they're afraid it means staying there forever. The irony is that what we resist actually does stick around. But when we say it out loud, or journal it, or even just whisper it to ourselves, something shifts. We give the pain a place to exist, so it no longer has to hide. That moment of honesty becomes the beginning of healing, not the end of it. Let's be clear, this is not about confronting the person who hurt you right away. Sometimes that's not safe. Sometimes it's not possible. And sometimes, the work has nothing to do with them. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is sit quietly with yourself and say, "That moment broke my heart a little. And I didn't deserve that." It's about validating your own experience before expecting anyone else to do it. And if this feels hard, it's because many of us grew up in homes or cultures where emotional expression was not modeled. Maybe you learned that being upset made you a burden. Maybe you were taught that being vulnerable made you weak. So of course, acknowledging hurt feels unnatural. But it is learnable. And it starts small. It might be writing one line in a journal. It might be saying to a trusted friend, "Something happened and I didn't realize how much it got to me." It might even be crying in the car and just letting that be okay for once. One of the most powerful practices I've ever learned is asking myself this simple question: what am I actually feeling right now? Not what I should feel. Not what I wish I felt. But what's really here? And then giving that feeling some space. No fixing. No judging. Just witnessing. You'd be amazed how much clarity and self-compassion arise from that kind of inner honesty. Acknowledging the hurt doesn't mean you have to make any decisions right away. You don't have to confront, forgive, cut off, or resolve. You just need to tell yourself the truth. That's it. Because until we're willing to tell ourselves the truth, we can't make wise, grounded choices about what comes next. We're too busy protecting the wound to actually heal it. So the next time someone hurts you deeply, subtly, or in a way you didn't expect, pause. Don't rush to move on. Don't perform strength. Don't drown it in logic. Just stop and ask, did that hurt me? And if the answer is yes, let it be yes. That yes isn't weakness. It's a door. And it leads directly to your own power. When someone hurts you, your first instinct might be to shut the door and bolt it tight. That's natural. We want to protect ourselves from more pain, from further rejection, from being made to feel small or dismissed again. So we do what we've been taught, we put up a wall. A thick, high, unscalable wall meant to keep everything out. But what we often forget is that those walls also keep us in. And over time, they don't just protect us from harm, they disconnect us from healing, growth, and meaningful connection. There's a difference between walls and boundaries, and that difference matters deeply. Walls are reactive. They are built in panic, fear, and emotional shutdown. Boundaries, on the other hand, are intentional. They are built from a place of clarity, self-awareness, and self-respect. When someone hurts you, setting a boundary means you are no longer willing to abandon yourself to preserve someone else's comfort. It's not about punishment, it's about protection. Not to push someone away, but to make space for yourself to be whole. Many of us confuse boundaries with being mean, cold, or unapproachable. We think saying no makes us rude or selfish. We think standing up for ourselves will make people leave. But a boundary is not a betrayal of kindness, it's the foundation of healthy relationships. It says, "This is where I end and you begin. And if you're going to be in my life, here are the conditions that support my emotional safety." It can feel uncomfortable at first. Especially if you're someone who's used to people pleasing, smoothing things over, or keeping the peace at the cost of your own well-being. You may even feel guilt. That's common. We've been conditioned to believe that prioritizing ourselves is a threat to connection. But the truth is, there is no real connection without boundaries. Without them, there's only performance, compliance, and quiet resentment brewing under the surface. That's not love. That's survival. Boundaries are not ultimatums. They are not weapons. They are clear, direct expressions of what is okay and what is not okay for you. For example, if someone consistently talks over you or disregards your voice, a boundary might sound like, "I'm not going to continue this conversation if I feel I'm not being heard." If someone makes a joke at your expense in public, a boundary might be, "That kind of humor makes me uncomfortable. Please don't speak to me like that again." These statements aren't cruel. They're clear. They don't escalate conflict, they prevent it from festering. It's also important to know that setting a boundary doesn't guarantee a certain reaction from the other person. Some people will respect it. Some won't. Some will get defensive, accuse you of being dramatic, or try to make you feel guilty for honoring your needs. That response has nothing to do with your worthiness and everything to do with their relationship to accountability. Letting people have their reactions is part of boundary setting too. You are not responsible for how someone feels about the limits you place for your own well-being. This is where the difference between a wall and a boundary becomes clear again. A wall says, "No one gets in. Ever." It's rigid, unmovable, often built out of fear or unprocessed pain. A boundary says, "You are welcome in my life, but here is how I need to be treated to feel safe with you." Boundaries are loving, even when they're firm. They leave room for growth and reconnection, if that's what's right. Walls leave room only for isolation. When you begin practicing boundaries, one of the most profound shifts happens internally. You stop outsourcing your peace to other people. You begin trusting yourself to protect your own heart. And that changes the way you show up in every relationship. You're no longer waiting for others to figure out what you need. You're no longer hoping they read your mind, or feeling resentful when they don't. You start taking ownership of your own emotional space. And that's incredibly empowering. What's also beautiful is that boundaries model emotional maturity for others. When you calmly state what's not okay for you, you're giving other people permission to do the same. It sets a tone of respect and authenticity. Relationships built on mutual respect of each other's boundaries are stronger, not weaker. They're more honest, more sustainable, more alive. And if you've ever experienced someone violating your boundaries repeatedly, then this next part is important. Honoring your boundary sometimes means stepping away. Not to punish, but to protect your peace. You can forgive someone and still choose to create distance. You can understand their pain and still decide that you will no longer accept the way they treat you. Boundaries aren't about cutting people off, they're about choosing your own emotional safety over someone else's comfort. And that's not selfish. That's sacred. The truth is, not everyone will earn the right to stay close to you. And that's okay. Boundaries don't make you hard, they make you honest. They don't mean you've given up on people, they mean you've stopped giving up on yourself. And the more you practice them, the more peace you will find, not because life gets easier, but because you get clearer on what you will and won't allow. So the next time someone hurts you, don't build a wall. Don't disappear into silence or armor up with anger. Instead, take a breath, and ask yourself, what do I need in order to feel safe and respected here? Then say it. Even if your voice shakes. Even if they don't like it. Say it. Because your feelings are valid. Your needs are real. And your boundaries are a reflection of your worth. When someone hurts us, our brains move fast. Before we even take a full breath, a story starts forming. They didn't text back because they're done with us. That tone in their voice means they don't respect us. They cancelled again because they don't really care. The mind grabs pieces of evidence and quickly builds a narrative around them. And more often than not, that story is sharp. It's shaped by fear, past wounds, unspoken insecurities, and a deep need to make sense of something that hurt. In those moments, we're rarely thinking with compassion. We're thinking with protection. We're trying to get ahead of disappointment by writing the ending ourselves. And sadly, that ending often includes making the other person the villain and ourselves the unworthy or betrayed character. But what if, instead of tightening our defenses and assuming the worst, we got curious instead? What if we paused long enough to say, what story am I telling myself right now, or is there something else that could be true? Getting curious doesn't mean excusing bad behavior. It doesn't mean we ignore red flags or let people walk all over us. What it means is that we pause the spiral. We hold space for complexity. We acknowledge that the human experience, ours and others, is layered, often messy, and almost never black and white. Getting curious invites us into a different relationship with our pain. Instead of reacting with blame or cruelty, we open a small window for understanding. That doesn't mean the person who hurt us is automatically right. It simply means we're choosing not to let our assumptions lead the conversation. We're choosing to ask instead of accuse. We're choosing to wonder rather than weaponize. One of the most powerful questions I ever learned to ask myself in a moment of hurt is, what else could be going on here? Maybe that person didn't show up because they're overwhelmed, not because they don't value us. Maybe their abrupt words came from their own unresolved grief, not from a place of malice. Maybe they're emotionally unavailable not because we are not worthy, but because they haven't yet learned how to be open. Again, none of this erases the impact of their actions. But it softens the harsh edges of our internal narrative, and that alone creates space for choice, not just reaction. Cruelty, even in our thoughts, is often a mask for pain. When we feel hurt, we want to hurt back even if just in our own heads. We tell ourselves stories that paint the other person as careless, selfish, or cold. It gives us a false sense of control. It allows us to armor up. But what that cruelty does over time is keep us locked in pain. Because the more we demonize others, the more bitter we become. And bitterness is not a safe place to live. Curiosity is different. It doesn't ignore the pain, it holds it gently. It asks questions like, why did that affect me so deeply, or what need of mine went unmet in that moment, or is this reminding me of something older that I haven't quite healed from? These are brave questions. They don't always have simple answers. But they shift the focus from vengeance to understanding, and from pain to insight. Being curious also allows us to communicate more effectively. When we assume, we attack. When we're curious, we inquire. A statement like, you obviously don't care about me can turn into, I felt really hurt when you didn't respond. Can you help me understand what happened? One invites connection. The other shuts it down. And yes, sometimes people won't meet us there. Sometimes, no matter how gentle and curious we are, someone will still choose to dismiss us or deflect. That doesn't mean we were wrong to lead with curiosity. It just means we've learned something real about what they're capable of, and that's useful information too. We don't get curious to fix other people. We do it to better understand ourselves and to act from integrity, not impulse. It's about staying grounded in our values. If one of your values is compassion, then cruelty, even justified cruelty, will always feel out of alignment. If one of your values is honesty, then building a story on top of assumptions won't feel right either. Curiosity helps bring us back to those values, back to that center, where we can respond from a place of truth, not just emotion. And here's something important, being curious doesn't mean staying in harm's way. If someone repeatedly hurts you, disrespects you, or shows no accountability, you can be curious and still choose to walk away. The two are not mutually exclusive. You can say, I'm curious about what made this dynamic so painful for me, while also saying, this relationship is not healthy for me, and I need to step back. Curiosity is about growth, not martyrdom. It's not about tolerating more pain, it's about learning from it. So the next time someone hurts you and your mind starts building that familiar story, pause. Take a breath. Notice the impulse to strike back, to shut down, to write the worst-case scenario. And then gently ask yourself, what else could be true, or what part of me is feeling unworthy right now, or even, is this about them, or is it also about something in me that's still healing? These questions take courage. But they lead to wisdom. They create the kind of self-awareness that strengthens your emotional resilience. Getting curious means you are committed to growing, even through hurt. It means you are willing to see nuance where others might just see blame. It means you're choosing the path of emotional maturity. And that choice, that moment of grace you give yourself, is what keeps your heart soft without letting it stay exposed. It's what allows you to keep showing up as the person you want to be, even when others fall short. When someone wounds us, whether with words, silence, betrayal, or disregard, the sting is real. The pain is raw. And in that place, retaliation often feels like power. It's tempting to match their energy. To give back the same coldness. To say the thing that'll cut just as deep. We think, if they made me feel small, I'll make them feel smaller. There's a twisted satisfaction in imagining it just for a moment. But here's the truth that often arrives a little later: once the storm passes, retaliation doesn't heal. It hardens. It doesn't restore your dignity. It compromises it. And in choosing that path, you walk away from the one thing you can fully control: your integrity. Integrity is not a performance. It's not about looking good or being the bigger person for the sake of appearances. It's about alignment. It's about asking, in the quietest part of your soul, who do I want to be when things get hard? And then answering that question with action. Integrity doesn't mean we deny our anger. It doesn't mean we let people off the hook or spiritualize abuse. It means we feel all of it: rage, grief, disappointment, and then we choose to respond in a way that doesn't betray who we are. Not for them. For us. Retaliation is reactive. It rises from the part of us that wants to balance the scales quickly. But retaliation isn't justice, it's reenactment. It makes us actors in someone else's story. We become the thing we were hurt by. And the moment we do that, we hand over our power. Because real power is not about controlling someone else, it's about being rooted in your values, no matter what someone else does or doesn't do. You can be angry and still be kind. You can be heartbroken and still be respectful. You can be disappointed and still hold your head high. That's what integrity looks like. It lives in those moments when it would be easier to lash out, but you pause instead. When it would feel satisfying to shame or dismiss someone, but you choose to step back without causing harm. That restraint isn't weakness. It's mastery. It's knowing you don't need to stoop to prove your strength. You are strong already, because you know who you are. Sometimes, choosing integrity looks like saying nothing when everything in you wants to shout. Sometimes it's walking away without explaining yourself to people who were never listening. Sometimes it's holding the line with your boundaries, not to punish, but to protect your peace. And sometimes, it's simply refusing to let someone else's behavior dictate the kind of person you become. That's not denial. That's wisdom. That's maturity. Retaliation often disguises itself as justice. But justice, real justice, is not about revenge, it's about accountability. And here's the hard part: you may never get the apology you deserve. You may never hear the words you needed. Some people may never see what they did, let alone own it. And that's devastating, because as humans, we crave closure. But when that closure doesn't come, you still get to decide how the story ends. You can write an ending that honors you, not one that mirrors their harm. Choosing integrity doesn't mean you tolerate everything. It doesn't mean you keep the door open to people who continually hurt you. You can have integrity and still say, no more. You can have integrity and block the number, leave the conversation, end the relationship. The difference is how you do it. With cruelty or with clarity. With spite or with strength. With retaliation or with resolve. And it's okay if this feels hard. Because it is. It's hard to choose the higher road when you're aching. It's hard to be graceful when you feel gutted. But it gets easier with practice. And every time you choose to rise instead of retaliate, you reinforce something sacred within yourself. You say, I will not let pain turn me into someone I'm not. I can hold grief and grace at the same time. This doesn't mean you're emotionless. Quite the opposite. It means you've learned how to process those emotions in a way that doesn't damage your own soul. It means you trust that you can feel deeply without losing yourself. And it means you know this: hurting someone back doesn't undo your hurt. It only prolongs it. It turns pain into a pattern instead of a lesson. You can let people feel the weight of losing access to you without making a spectacle of your departure. You can reclaim your peace without shouting about how they disturbed it. That kind of quiet dignity, that kind of calm departure, speaks louder than any revenge ever could. It says, I know what I'm worth. I know what I deserve. And I'm no longer explaining it to anyone who refuses to see it. Integrity is choosing you, not the ego part of you that wants to win, but the honest part of you that wants peace. It's letting the hurt soften you instead of harden you. It's finding the courage to heal in private, to grow without proving, and to move on without applause. And maybe most importantly, it's learning that not every wound requires a witness. Some healing happens in silence. Some victories are personal. So the next time you are hurt and everything in you wants to strike back, just pause. Breathe. Ask yourself, if I act on this, will I still respect myself tomorrow? And then choose the response that honors your future self. That version of you, the one who stayed true, who didn't let bitterness win, will thank you. And that thanks will be worth more than any temporary satisfaction retaliation ever offered. Let me know if you'd like me to help you turn all 4 of these keynotes into a full speech next. If this message spoke to you, share it with someone who might need it today. All my friends who support this channel, thank you for being here, for showing up with courage and curiosity. I see you, I appreciate you. Until next time, take care of your heart, stay kind, and thanks for watching.